ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المذلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For tonight, I wanted to share with you this beautiful hadith from our eighth Imam, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's about the aql. We've talked about it on some of the previous nights. We didn't really give the definition because it requires a little bit more time. But in regards to some of the other topics that we've been addressing, especially last night, when we talked about how we have to be a bit more firm in determining a path to figuring out which decisions do we have to make in order to even have a determination and a resolution to change our life. Instead of just making a random change in my life and saying, I want to do this, the hadith that we discussed last night was that no, we need to have a plan of action first, then make a determination, and then you can be focused. So some people, they think when we talk about the aql, they say that, okay, to be aql, to have a strong aql, means to be intellectual, means to be super rational and logical, things like that. We think of geniuses or smart people, like, oh, those are people who have aql. And this is not the way that it's described at all in the Quran or any of the riwayat. Right? The aql is something completely different. So much so that many of our ulama say even the word intellect is probably not a good translation to use for the concept of the aql. Some use something, again, they use depending on their background. The aql has more to do with a certain kind of cognizance and awareness, right? A higher level spiritual awareness. Not so much the brain and cognitive faculties and activities. It's a part of that, but it's beyond that too, right? So this hadith is interesting because the Imam says here, لا يتم العقل امرأ مسلم حتى تكون فيه عشر خصال. That the aql of a person, of a Muslim, is not complete until they have these 10 qualities. So before we even go into the qualities, when people think about even how to perfect one's intellect, we would imagine it has something to do with learning, has something to do with memorization, education, reading books. When we think about being intellectual and learning more, that's what we're imagining. When we think of intellectual people, we think of them with big libraries, reading books all the time, people who can memorize a lot of facts. But as we'll see from this hadith, there's only maybe one point here that has to do with ta'aleem and ta'allum, meaning learning and education. And even the point that's mentioned has nothing to do with the actual education itself. All of these points that are mentioned have something to do with akhlaq, the connection of our morality, the journey of our soul. That has an effect on how powerful and how complete our aql actually is. And again, this is something that the Western world still doesn't understand. Right? They still think of things in very empirical, physical, dunyawi manners. But for us, if we want to realize and remember and recognize that the aql, in order for it to have that nur, that light from Allah in it, then it has to have that space, that openness. And in order to receive that nur from Allah, it requires a certain spiritual state. Right? So this is what we have to have within the aql. So we'll mention these 10 characteristics tonight, inshallah, after salawat al Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It's beautiful how the Imam has phrased it too. Pretty much all of these qualities, they come in pairs, pretty much, right? But here, we'll go one by one and we'll see. So the first quality, the al-khair minhu ma'amul, and second is washar minhu ma'amun. So khair from a person, meaning again, we're talking about a person whose aql is complete, right? Perfect intellect. That khair is ma'mul, meaning everybody has an amal towards somebody doing khair to them. If I'm dealing with somebody who has a perfect intellect, I'm always hopeful that they're always going to do khair with me, that they're always going to do the best thing possible with me. I always expect the best behavior, the best response, smiles on their face, this kind of thing. Whereas the other side is what? وَالشَّرْ مِنْهُ مَأْمُونٌ. On the other side, I don't expect any evil from this individual. There are sometimes people we come across where they have a bad day. Something didn't go right at work. They had a fight with a family member, right? They got some bad news about something. What happens is they take it out on everybody that they come across, right? Sometimes it happens with spouses. They come back after work, something didn't go right, and they start to unload and express that anger, hatred, and frustration to all their loved ones, which we have to be careful of and not to do, right? These are the last people we should be unloading this kind of negative energy on. A person with the complete aql, we would never have that sort of fear. You would always expect that, no, this person, they're always going to be on their best behavior. They're always going to come with a smile on their face. And we know people like this, they come to the center all the time. They're always there, they're smiling. They'll be the ones saying salam first. They're shaking their hands, they'll give you a hug. They're always, friendly. They put out this sort of positive energy. Even if something went wrong in their life, and they could be struggling, they could be dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of problems, but you and I would never know it. Why? Because they have realized that that problem that I have to deal with, why would I involve other people in it and make them share in this negative energy? All I have to do is spread that kind of positive energy, and I'll take care of my problem the way I need to. Right? So that's the first two characteristics of a person with a Muslim with the complete aql. That there is always a hope of khair from them, and there is always a protection from evil and shar from them. What's the next two? Let's recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. يستكثر القليل الخير من غيري ويستقل كثير الخير من نفسي. Again, another akhlaqi point, has nothing to do with any reading or learning or anything. So what do? Whenever a little bit of khair is done for them, somebody does like a small amount of good, nothing crazy, something simple, what happens? يستكثر. They increase it, they multiply, they exaggerate it. Right? Someone does something very simple, right? Maybe you drop something on the floor, you're sitting down, they pick it up and give it to you. Instead of just saying, well, it's not a big deal, it's right in front of them, who cares? A person with the complete aql, they say, wait, that was a big deal, you didn't have to do something like that. And they really attach a lot of value to people who do things like this. Every small little feature, right? You're driving, right? Maybe you're speeding along the highway, you need somebody to move out of your way, and they move out of your way, and you exaggerate it, like, oh, that's such great behavior that they have there. Somebody, out of nowhere just sends you a message, right, saying that, I was thinking about you, and I just wanted to let you know, especially on the nights of Qadr, I'm sure many of you got messages from family and friends, maybe people you haven't talked to in a long time. And they sent you a message, said, I was thinking about you on these nights of Qadr, and I was making dua for you. Now, a person with a small intellect, or a small aql, an incomplete aql would be like, who cares? They probably send out the message all the time, who cares? Somebody with the complete aql says, no, that's a big deal. Because they could have easily just done their a'mal without mentioning. They could have thought about me and not told me, but they went out of their way on that night, on those nights, to actually message me. And because of that message, I feel better. Maybe it didn't give them any goodness, maybe just, there was nothing in it for them, but they knew that it was going to make me feel better, so they took time out of the day and they did that for me. Now, the other side of that, وَيَسْتَقِلُّ كَثِيرَ الْخَيْرِ مِنْ نَفْسِي. If I do anything khair, and it's actually a lot, I under-exaggerate. I don't consider it anything. Right? Think about, for example, especially when, alhamdulillah, many people have been donating in this month for sponsoring the iftar that's happening here. People are volunteering, they clean up. There's a lot of people who are helping put these programs together every single night. There are some on one side who they might be giving a lot of money, meaning they probably are saving up for some trip, a vacation, ziyarah, something. But what do? They're like, no, the center needs it more, so I'm going to give them as much as I can. And they do that, but for their own self, they don't think that it's a lot. Like, no, that's the least I can do. There's so much better. I wish I could do more, but this is nothing. Whereas there's somebody else who, what happens? They do khair, they do some goodness. They'll sponsor, they'll donate, but they, like, okay, are you going to tell other people about this? Are you going to announce my name to people? No? Are you going to put a plaque up for me? Like, are you going to thank me? Are you going to mention me on the Eid khutbah that I've done so much goodness for this community? They're looking for their nafs to be satisfied, right? It's that ego that wants to be satisfied. They don't do khair for the sake of khair. They're doing it because their ego likes it, right? So somebody who's fighting their nafs will say that, look, I could do a lot more in every single situation, so I should undermine and under-exaggerate everything that I do. I could be doing a lot more. And the same way, but when they see other people doing it, it's the exact opposite assumption. That no, if somebody else is doing khair, my assumption is it's the best thing that they could have done possible. Let me share a short story. They say that once Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam mentioned that there was this individual, right, a poor person in the area who was going around, right? And he, this is most likely in the time of Ramadan, right? May or may not be. So this faqir had, very little to him, didn't have much, right? So he saw somebody who was in need, right? Who just happened to need a date. So this faqir gives this person a date. So this person who he gave the date to happened to be extremely, extremely wealthy, right? But he was touched by this action. So when this poor person, this faqir, gave him this one little date, he reciprocated and gave him this big bag of gold. And Imam Sadiq, this person who, Imam Sadiq told the story to, he said, why would you give all of this gold to this person who gave you one single date, right? That's not just, right? They gave you one little date. How would you give them so much money? It doesn't make sense. He said, this faqir gave me everything that they had. Why shouldn't I do the same exact thing for them? Why shouldn't I give everything that I have? Just because they don't have as much as me doesn't mean that I shouldn't be reciprocating the exact same way, right? It's about the quality, not the quantity, as we were mentioning last night and the night before. If this person can only give one or two dates, or maybe a few dinar or dirham or a few dollars, that's their capacity, fine. And that's probably a lot for some people, right? Many people who maybe can only sponsor, maybe they can't even sponsor themselves a full night, maybe they don't have enough, so they sponsor half a night or some plates, something like that. Well, for a lot of people, that's a big, big deal because they might be in debt, have a lot of maybe student loans, mortgage, car payments, so many things going on, but they've still made the center and the community a priority where I can suffer a little bit for the sake of the community. But some other individuals say, look, I'm not going to suffer unless somebody recognizes that I've suffered. Unless you tell me and let the community know that I've done something for them, then what's the point? So it's not done for the sake of Allah. It's not done for the sake of the community. It's done so I get some attention. And a person like that does not have a complete and kamil intellect. Let's go to the next characteristics. If you can recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. يسأم من طلب الحوائج إليه ولا يمل من طلب العلم طول الدهر. So this one is in terms of this tiredness, right? That sometimes people get. So the first part is that a person doesn't get tired whenever people constantly ask them for their needs, right? Sometimes it can happen where we are constantly asked by maybe the same people or maybe different people because we happen to have, certain things. So those who have a certain skill set, right? Some people, because they have a medical background, right? They might be doctors. So there's always going to be some family member or some community member who's going to be messaging them, taking pictures, saying, what does this look like? Is this infected, right? Is everything okay? Like, what should I do? Right? Even though that this is their livelihood, they still are looking for freebies all the time, right? Give me some free advice. It happens to lawyers too, right? People who are lawyers, they want free legal advice, right? So they get asked and messaged all the time, what should I do? Should I fight this or not? Should I take them to court? They ask questions. People who have a tech background, right? Who know about software, hardware, things like that. People will message, oh, my Wi-Fi is not working, my computer's running slow, what do I do? Even though this is how they earn their halal rizq and their halal income, they get asked constantly to do work for free, right? Constantly, just do it. And I would know, I'm getting questions, ahkam all the time. I get the same kinds of questions at all times of the day. People are asking me about, especially Ramadan masail, they're asking me about whether this food is halal or haram. So it happens to all of us, based on whatever skill sets or knowledge base that we have. People will push us and they'll constantly try to get their needs from us. A person with a complete intellect, the Imam's saying here that they don't get tired of this. They don't say, ugh, can't they just do this themselves? Can't they ask somebody else? What they see is that Allah has made me a wasila to take care of their hawaij. Right? When we say that people ask Allah directly, well, nobody asks Allah to give them answers about infections or to give them legal advice or to help them out with some technical issue or about their ahkam directly. We use human beings for that as a wasila. So one of our other riwayat say that the fastest way to tawheed, the fastest connection that you and I can build to Allah is when Allah makes you and I a wasila on His behalf to solve somebody's needs, their hajat. Because Allah says, I'm going to solve their problem, but I have to do it through insan. Allah's not just going to come down and just take care of it like that. He says, no, it'll be solved through somebody. So which of my ibad, which of my mu'mineen are going to solve this problem? So Allah is giving the opportunity to us. So somebody who's getting tired of this is literally getting tired of taking care of Allah's ibad and His servants. One with the complete aql is like, this is an opportunity for me. Why would I get tired of that? Why would I get tired of something like this? And then on the other side, the Imam says here, وَلَا يَمُلُّ مِنْ طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ طُولَ الدَّهْرِ. Right? He also never tires from what? Seeking knowledge throughout his life. There are some who, gaining information can be an exhausting thing. Sometimes learning can be a little boring, right? Trust me, I went to Hausa for many years. Not every class was fun, right? I fell asleep in a few classes too. It happens, right? Some teachers, they're not that great. Some books that we read are a little boring. Some speakers, maybe myself, we're just not that entertaining. We're not orators, right? So it just doesn't work out well. So we get bored. And then we kind of lose, the interest in reading or researching or listening. It happens, right? But somebody with the complete aql, complete intellect, doesn't get tired by things like this. They're not concerned with how interesting something is, how well something's packaged, how much oratory ability and skill somebody has. They are only after Allah. That's their job. Say, okay, where can I get that information, more ma'rifah about Allah? I'll take it. If it's somebody who speaks too slow, I'll take it. If it's somebody who speaks too fast, I'll take it. If it's somebody who their delivery is off, I'll take it. Why? Because I'm after the ilm. I don't care about the wasila. My job is to get the information and ma'rifah about Allah. I don't care how it's packaged. That's what somebody with a complete aql is interested in. Inshallah, Allah give us that sort of tawfiq. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Next characteristics. Al-faqru fillah ahabbu ilay min al-ghina. وَالظَّلُّ فِي اللَّهِ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْهِ مِنَ الْعِزِّ وَالْعُدُوبِ. That for this person, being a faqir in the eyes and for the sake of Allah is more important and dearer to them than wealth. They're not interested in, for example, having all this money if it's going to make them sacrifice something about their deen, their taqwa, their spiritual life. There are some people who they found a very good job. They got hired by a good company, but the hours, the job was very, very demanding. So what happens is they started to lose time with their family. They started to lose time for their ibadah because they'd come back after these long shifts, all this work, and they wouldn't have time for anything else. So no time for Allah, no time for their family, nothing. But their rationalization was what? Is that, well, I'm earning so that I can take care of my family. I'm earning so my family can have a good life afterwards. Right? That's what people, sometimes that's how they rationalize it. Then what happens? Once they reach a certain age, where now they can say, maybe I can retire or cut back my hours. So now they want to go out, go on vacation and have fun with their family. The kids usually are like, have no relationship with them. The kids don't care anymore. Kids have their own friends now. They have their own, people that they hang out with. So that mom and dad at that point, who've been working all these years, they say, okay, now I'm ready for a relationship. And the child will say, well, I'm not ready. You had your chance when I was a kid, and now that chance is gone. I'm not going to build up the relationship anymore. You thought that working was more important, but no, attention to me, spending time with me was more important at that age. And the child lost it, so they went and found these friends. If we're lucky, they were Muslim friends. And when we're unlucky, especially in this society, it's non-Muslim friends. And those non-Muslim friends have an effect. And then they take those kids to God knows where. Right? I still get messages to this day from people in various communities in the same situation where parents did not give their time to their kids when they were younger. So those kids developed a relationship with people of other faiths, which we might think, oh, that's good. So what happens? Those parents now message me and say, my child is ready to become a Christian, or they've already converted. Why? It's because all their friends were Christians with good akhlaq. They gave them time, they gave them good advice, or what they thought was good advice. They took care of them, a crying shoulder, everything. So why wouldn't that person become a Christian? Because their so-called Muslim parents were too busy working and earning money. There was no Islam that was seen in the house. They had no interest. Right? All that money becomes useless when that child is not interested. They're not looking for that. The child just wants to spend some time. And any of you have ever sit with any children, they don't care about any fancy dunyawi things. It's you and I who sometimes care about that, about what money can offer. A child doesn't care. They want to sit and play and run around and pretend to be animals, do stuff like that. Play with toys, that's it. They don't need anything expensive or fancy. It's us forgetting how simplistic they are and how imaginative they can be too. And it's because we have lost our imagination sometimes and we get too drowned in the dunya. So it's okay to be a little bit less, to not always get six figures and all these things, right? It's okay to take a little bit less, which sometimes means you're a bit more independent. Or maybe you reject a job because, unfortunately, there's many people who, well, let me give the other side. There's a few individuals that I know in this community that have, because of their background, they can get very, very good jobs. And the jobs they can get are with these companies that are part of the military-industrial complex, meaning they're selling weapons to the Zionist regime, for example. So they can make a lot of money with them. They're highly sought after. But I've talked to these people. They've said, look, am I allowed to take this position or not? I said, look, if you're going to be helping in the oppression of the Palestinians, then you're not allowed. I said, okay. He's like, even if, and the person asked, like, okay, I can get that job very easily. Any other job I get is not going to pay. Like this one's paying almost double. I said, look, that's the ahkam, it's up to you. I said, if you're in absolute need, that's a different story altogether. If you're like literally starving on the street, that's different. And that's the only job you can find. He said, no, I can get other jobs. I can do little stuff here and there. It won't be as much, but I'd rather do that and have a clear, unguilty, free conscience. Right? I've had many other younger people in the community too, who had internships in college, working with these big corporations, right? Like Disney, for example. And as part of their internship, they were required to do some advertisement that involved LGBTQ stuff. So they told their boss that, look, I can't promote things like this. This is against my belief system. They said, look, either you do it or you're gone and the internship's done. Now, look, working for the Disney Corporation is a big deal. It's not a small corporation, right? You get an internship there, you work your way up, you can get a very decent job. But this person, again, was a kid in college, said, no, that's okay. They left the internship right away. They said, I'm not going to sacrifice my values just for this. If I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, Allah will provide. I don't need some other company or corporation to provide for me. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And the other part of that is that humility in Allah's path is dearer than honor among enemies. We don't need to have these positive reviews and to have the enemies of Allah, the enemies of Islam, smile upon us, give us good reviews, think that we're peaceful and loved. We don't need all this. We don't need them to praise us and tell us how good we are. It's unnecessary if it's going to make us sacrifice our actual principles. And we don't need them to praise us. We know what our values are. We have iftikhar, we have pride. We should. The good kind of pride, not the rainbow kind, right? Not that one. The good kind. And look, as long as Allah considers me and says that I have izzah, then that's all I care about. If I am a zalil and a zalil in other people's eyes, that's fine. I'm not concerned with them. Why? Because they're not deciding my akhirah. And they're also not in charge of my dunya either. Allah is the one who's going to be able to place these things in front of me. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Two more characteristics. I think we'll mention one tonight and then the next one we'll save for tomorrow. Number 9 is وَالْخُمُولْ أَشْهَى إِلَيْهِ مِنَ الشُّهْرَةِ. That obscurity, being unknown, has more desire. I would want that more than to have fame. Now, this is very, very difficult in this day and age, where everybody wants to take these devices, turn on their camera, point it at themselves, and start recording and get their name out there to become an influencer, to become a celebrity. Everybody feels like they have something to offer the world. Okay, that's what we're being told. Everybody has something to offer. Well, sure, we all have something to offer, but maybe it doesn't need to be broadcasted to millions of people. Maybe we don't have to spend all our time trying to figure out how to work the algorithm, how to get the most information out possible. Right? Some of that's not necessary. And usually because if you look at all these individuals who are a part of this sort of online social media network, influencing and becoming celebrities, even some speakers, meaning like, ulama speakers, things like that, you see how it can affect their own nafs, their ego, unfortunately. I have individuals, like, fellow colleagues, ulama, who have told me that, because they spend time, they build up their social media following, and I've had conversations with them about it. They say, they hate doing it because they're constantly checking their phone. How many likes did they get? Was it reshared? Should I edit this? What time of day should I share the videos? So it takes over, it becomes an obsession for them. And now every single person that I see and they talk to, every single person wants to start a podcast. I'm like, look, trust me. You might be okay to talk to one-on-one, but you have nothing to offer for a podcast. Not everybody needs to go and start interviewing people and sharing their thoughts with the world. Not everybody has these interesting thoughts. It's not necessary, right? But this modern world, this postmodern world, has made us all think that we're all celebrities. No, it's more likely than not that the majority of us are just average humans. We're just average people with average spirituality, average thinking, and that's it. And we just go about our life doing what we have to do to the best of our ability. That's it. We don't need to broadcast this out to the world. Yeah, the few and far between whom Allah has blessed, Allah will take their message and He'll raise it Himself. We don't need any algorithm to do it for them, right? Even to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah says, وَرَفَعْنَا لَهُ ذِكْرًا. Allah says, I'm the one who raised your dhikr. Right? It's not Rasulullah going and advertising himself to everybody. Right? Allah says, I'm the one who did irtifa' of your dhikr. I'm the one who made it put your name on everybody's tongues, on their lips. I'm the one who put your name in everybody's hearts. And that's why we still remember him to this day, and people around the world, even non-Muslims, recognize his personality and his qualities. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Oh, the last part. So I won't go through the whole thing, but the reason why it deserves maybe to wait till tomorrow is because when the Imam here reaches the 10th characteristic, he says, Al-ashira wa mal-ashira. He says the 10th characteristic, and what is this 10th characteristic? So even the Imam is leaving us in suspense over here. Like, this is really, really important. And inshallah, you'll see when we mention it, because even the people who are with him, they're like, okay, mahiya, like what is it? Like you're hyping it up so much, you're leaving us in suspense. Yeah, Imam, tell us what it is. So if the Imam did it, then I have to do it as well too, I guess, right? So inshallah, we'll go through this 10th characteristic, which is the most difficult, but without a doubt, the most powerful for our spiritual growth. If Allah gives us tawfiq, tomorrow night, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ahli baytihi al-tayyibin al-tahirin.
On, right? What do you want? Just clip it. Okay, so yeah, today is 25. Is it on? Yeah. All right. We're gonna be reciting part of Juz'a 25, starting at page 482. 482. No, page 482. Top of the page. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إليه يرد علم الساعة وما تخرج من ثمرات من أكمامها وما تحمل من أنثى ولا تضع إلا بعلمه ويوم يناديهم أين شركائي قالوا أذناك ما منا من شهيد وضل عنهم ما كانوا يدعون من قبل وظنوا ما لهم من محيص لا يسأم الإنسان من دعاء الخير وإن مسه الشر فيئوس قنوط ولئن أذقناه رحمة منا من بعد ضراء مسته ليقولن هذا لي وما أظن الساعة قائمة ولئن رجعت إلى ربي إن لي عنده للحسنى فلننبئن الذين كفروا بما عملوا ولنذيقنهم من عذاب غليظ وإذا أنعمنا على الإنسان أعرض ونأى بجانبه وإذا مسه الشر فذو دعاء عريض قل أرأيتم إن كان من عند الله ثم كفرتم به من أضل ممن هو في شقاق بعيد سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق أولم يكف بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد ألا إنهم في مرية من لقاء ربهم ألا إنه بكل شيء محيط بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حاميم عين سين قاف كذلك يوحي إليك وإلى الذين من قبلك الله العزيز الحكيم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وهو العلي العظيم تكاد السماوات يتفطرن من فوقهن والملائكة يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويستغفرون لمن في الأرض ألا إن الله هو الغفور الرحيم والذين اتخذوا من دونه أولياء الله حفيظ عليهم وما أنت عليهم بوكيل وكذلك أوحينا إليك قرآنا عربيا لتنذر أم القرى ومن حولها وتنذر يوم الجمع لا ريب فيه فريق في الجنة وفريق في السعير ولو شاء الله لجعلهم أمة واحدة ولكن يدخل من يشاء في رحمته والظالمون ما لهم من ولي ولا نصير أم اتخذوا من دونه أولياء فالله هو الولي وهو يحيي الموتى فالله هو الولي وهو يحيي الموتى وهو على كل شيء قدير وما اختلفتم فيه من شيء فحكمه إلى الله، ذلكم الله ربي عليه توكلت وإليه أنيب. فاطر السماوات والأرض، جعل لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا ومن الأنعام أزواجا يذرأكم فيه، ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. له مقاليد السماوات والأرض، يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر، إنه بكل شيء عليم. شرع لكم من الدين ما وصى به نوحا والذي أوحينا إليك وما وصينا به إبراهيم وموسى وعيسى أن أقيموا الدين ولا تتفرقوا فيه، كبر على المشركين ما تدعوهم إليه. الله يجتبي إليه من يشاء ويهدي إليه من ينيب، وما تفرقوا إلا من بعد ما جاءهم العلم بغيا بينهم، ولولا كلمة سبقت من ربك إلى أجل مسمى لقضي بينهم، وإن الذين أورثوا الكتاب من بعدهم لفي شك منه مريب. فلذلك فادع واستقم كما أمرت ولا تتبع أهواءهم، وقل آمنت بما أنزل الله من كتاب وأمرت لأعدل بينكم الله ربنا وربكم، لنا أعمالنا ولكم أعمالكم، لا حجة بيننا وبينكم، الله يجمع بيننا وإليه المصير. والذين يحاجون في الله من بعد ما استجيب له حجتهم داحضة عند ربهم، وعليهم غضب ولهم عذاب شديد. الله الذي أنزل الكتاب بالحق والميزان، وما يدريك لعل الساعة قريب، يستعجل بها الذين لا يؤمنون بها، والذين آمنوا مشفقون منها ويعلمون أنها الحق. ألا إن الذين يمارون في الساعة لفي ضلال بعيد. الله لطيف بعباده، يرزق من يشاء وهو القوي العزيز. من كان يريد حرث الآخرة نزد له في حرثه، ومن كان يريد حرث الدنيا نؤته منها، وما له في الآخرة من نصيب. أم لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لم يأذن به الله، ولولا كلمة الفصل لقضي بينهم، وإن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم. ترى الظالمين مشفقين مما كسبوا وهو واقع بهم، والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات في روضات الجنات لهم ما يشاءون عند ربهم، ذلك هو الفضل الكبير. ذلك الذي يبشر الله عباده الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى، ومن يقترف حسنة نزد له فيها حسنا، إن الله غفور شكور. أم يقولون افترى على الله كذبا، فإن يشأ الله يختم على قلبك ويمحو الله الباطل ويحق الحق بكلماته، إنه عليم بذات الصدور. وهو الذي يقبل التوبة عن عباده ويعفو عن السيئات ويعلم ما تفعلون، ويستجيب الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ويزيدهم من فضله والكافرون لهم عذاب شديد. ولو بسط الله الرزق لعباده لبغوا في الأرض ولكن ينزل بقدر ما يشاء إنه بعباده خبير بصير. وهو الذي ينزل الغيث من بعد ما قنطوا وينشر رحمته وهو الولي الحميد. ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض وما بث فيهما من دابة وهو على جمعهم إذا يشاء قدير. وما أصابكم من مصيبة فبما كسبت أيديكم ويعفو عن كثير. وما أنتم بمعجزين في الأرض وما لكم من دون الله من ولي ولا نصير. ومن آياته الجوار في البحر كالأعلام إن يشأ يسكن الريح فيظللن رواكد على ظهره إن في ذلك لآيات لكل صبار شكور. أو يوبقهن بما كسبوا ويعفو عن كثير. ويعلم الذين يجادلون في آياتنا ما لهم من محيص. فما أوتيتم من شيء فمتاع الحياة الدنيا وما عند الله خير وأبقى للذين آمنوا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون. والذين يجتنبون كبائر الإثم والفواحش وإذا ما غضبوا هم يغفرون. والذين استجابوا لربهم وأقاموا الصلاة وأمرهم شورى بينهم ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. والذين إذا أصابهم البغي هم ينتصرون. وجزاء سيئة سيئة مثلها فمن عفا وأصلح فأجره على الله إنه لا يحب الظالمين. ولمن انتصر بعد ظلمه فأولئك ما عليهم من سبيل إنما السبيل على الذين يظلمون الناس ويبغون في الأرض بغير الحق أولئك لهم عذاب أليم. ولمن صبر وغفر إن ذلك لمن عزم الأمور. ومن يضلل الله فما له من ولي من بعده. وترى الظالمين لما رأوا العذاب يقولون هل إلى مرد من سبيل. وتراهم يعرضون عليها خاشعين من الذل ينظرون من طرف خفي. وقال الذين آمنوا إن الخاسرين الذين خسروا أنفسهم وأهليهم يوم القيامة ألا إن الظالمين في عذاب مقيم. وما كان لهم من أولياء ينصرونهم من دون الله ومن يضلل الله فما له من سبيل. استجيبوا لربكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا مرد له من الله ما لكم من ملجأ يومئذ وما لكم من نكير. فإن أعرضوا فما أرسلناك عليهم حفيظا إن عليك إلا البلاغ وإنا إذا أذقنا الإنسان منا رحمة فرح بها وإن تصبهم سيئة بما قدمت أيديهم فإن الإنسان كفور. لله ملك السماوات والأرض يخلق ما يشاء يهب لمن يشاء إناثا ويهب لمن يشاء الذكور أو يزوجهم ذكرانا وإناثا ويجعل من يشاء عقيما إنه عليم قدير وما كان لبشر أن يكلمه الله إلا وحيا أو من وراء حجاب أو يرسل رسولا فيوحي بإذنه ما يشاء إنه علي حكيم وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا ما كنت تدري ما الكتاب ولا الإيمان ولكن جعلناه نورا نهدي به من نشاء من عبادنا وإنك لتهدي إلى صراط مستقيم صراط الله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ألا إلى الله تصير الأمور صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بابا مش ليه؟ شو ليه؟ أوصي. I had this on.